Suddenly, bang, it hit the front of the aircraft. But then we started to smell aviation fuel, and that's when panic started.
It was the end of a flight, but it was just the beginning of a frightening situation for passengers on board an Air Canada plane. The plane was heading to Sudbury, but was forced to turn back to Pearson due to fog. It had just landed and was taxiing to the gate when it was hit by a fuel tanker. Greg Ross is live for us at Pearson today. And Greg, glad to hear that there were no major injuries in this, but the big question everybody has now is, how does something like this happen at Pearson?
And Dwight, that's a question that investigators are trying to answer tonight. It's also a question that many of the passengers who were on board that plane are asking. The good news is everyone made it off of that plane alive. And we caught up with one of the passengers who was on board, who eventually did make it to Sudbury after catching another flight several hours later.
But everyone's like, we got to get out, like now.
Paul Fronczak describes the panic inside the cabin of Air Canada Express Flight 8615 moments after it was struck by a fuel tanker early this morning.
We started to smell aviation fuel, and that's when panic started.
Fronczak says it was the culmination of what had already been a long, frustrating night for passengers.
Flight was delayed several times to come to Sudbury.
After waiting hours for the flight to take off, they eventually did leave for Sudbury, but bad weather soon forced them to turn around.
Fog was extremely thick. We circled probably about 30 to 40 minutes, and then the pilot decided we've got to go back. He couldn't land it.
Fronczak says passengers were upset, but their frustrations would soon turn to terror just seconds after touching down back in Toronto.
The landing was fine. We were approaching the terminal. And on the left side, I looked out, and a large vehicle, was barreling. It appeared parallel to us, but suddenly, bang, it hit the front of the aircraft. Threw the aircraft in one direction, it spun to the opposite, and then it looks like either the front or the rear of it hit the back of the airplane.
A spokesperson for Jazz Aviation, which operates Air Canada Express flights, confirmed 5 people on board were injured. In a statement, they said EMS arrived to assess passengers and crew, and 3 crew and 2 passengers were transported to hospital for further assessment. All have been released. Ken Webster with the Transportation Safety Board of Canada is investigating the crash. He says the damage to the plane was extensive.
So there's a large piece of wreckage, dent if you will, on the front left part of the aircraft. The propeller is heavily damaged from the impact with the tanker, and the back of the aircraft as well, where the cargo door is extensively damaged.
Passengers tell us they were offered seats on later flights to Sudbury, but not all of them accepted. We spoke to passenger Kylie Wright by phone as she was driving to Sudbury.
So I had concerns for my safety, so I elected not to take the flight.
Peel Regional Police say that the driver of that tanker truck has been charged with dangerous driving under the Aviation Act. We reached out to the company that is responsible for those tanker trucks here at Pearson Airport. In a statement from Menzies Aviation, they told us that they immediately opened up an investigation to determine exactly what happened here this morning. Dwight?
Yeah, scary night out there for those passengers. Thank you, Greg. The province is mulling over increasing highway speed limits. A pilot project will allow drivers to go 110 on from the standard 100 on the 400 series highways. Now, on the same day, police had their own launch to combat street racing and remind drivers to slow down. Alicia Son has more.
There are effectively 3 different speed limits for any given highway. The design speed, which is how fast someone can safely go on the road depending on its design. The operating speed, which is how fast people actually go. And the posted speed limit, which is what you see on the signs. And that varies in Ontario. On 400 series highways, the speed limit is 100 kilometers an hour. On other provincial highways, it can be 80 or 90 kilometers an hour. Think country roads and highways. Fast fact, in 1975, the speed limit on 400 series highways was 113 kilometers an hour. But it was lowered because of an oil crisis. And now, for the first time in about 40 years, the province is considering changing it again.
Increasing the speed limits to 110 kilometers an hour on selected highways.
Starting in September, the speed limit will be increased to 110 kilometers an hour on the 402 between London and Sarnia. The same thing for the QEW between St. Catharines and Hamilton, and on the 417 from Ottawa to the Quebec border.
The pilot will run for 2 years, and we will monitor its effectiveness.
Pump the brakes. The increased speed limits were announced at the same time York Regional Police launched a crackdown on speeding and stunt driving.
An increased speed is always going to be a concern to us as police officers. But again, I trust and have faith that the ministry will have a consultation with the affected stakeholders and the appropriate decisions will be made.
Driving and speeding is the #1 killer on our highways right now. The faster you go in a vehicle, the more serious your injuries are going to be if you're involved in a collision. Overall, about 10,000 crashes a year are speed related. But again, the speed limits are the speed limits that we will enforce, and we need people to respect the laws because that's what keeps the highway safe for everyone.
Although they say they prefer lower speeds, police enforce the laws. And regardless of what the speed limit is, they will be out now that the weather is nice, cracking down on people who treat highways like raceways. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
And police say speed appears to be a factor in a crash that killed a 16-year-old driver. Members of the teen's family were at the scene this morning.
It's really bad. The way we found out today morning is really heartbroken. Even his family, it's really hard for them.
He was too young, very shy, and he's very good. But I don't know what happened to him. He has taken the car at midnight and go outside just for driving, I think. I don't know more.
The crash happened around 1:30 a.m. at Brimley and McNichol. Family identified the teen as Hanzala Tariq. They say he had taken his mother's car with 2 friends, a 14-year-old and another 16-year-old. The car mounted the curb and hit the cement base of the light standard. The pole then fell down on the sedan. It took firefighters about an hour to free all 3 teens from the Mercedes-Benz.
Any loss of life is tragic, but when you're that young, you have your whole life ahead of you, and clearly nobody wants to get that knock on the door or a phone call in the morning saying something's happened to one of your youngsters. I don't know all the circumstances surrounding the investigation, but we can look at the damage to the vehicle, and we know that there's some speed involved.
The teen's cousin said that he definitely did not have a G2 license and may not even have had a G1. The 14-year-old sitting in the front passenger seat has life-threatening injuries, while the 16-year-old passenger in the back seat has serious but non-life-threatening injuries. 2 weeks into their gun buyback program, Toronto police say they've received more than 1,200 guns from the public. So far, 816 long guns have been turned in. Each one was bought back for $200, and 419 handguns have been bought back for $350 each. Each gun will be checked by police to see if they have been used in a crime, but residents who turn over guns will not face a charge for possessing or unsafely storing a firearm. The program runs for 1 more week. We've seen videos of people snatching deliveries from the front of homes, but the suspect in this next video is much more brazen. It happened in Little Portugal earlier this week in the late afternoon. Lorenda Redekop has the story.
This home in Toronto's West End got the full CSI treatment today, checking for any fingerprints. It's after the homeowner, Andrea Wilson, realized a package she'd ordered didn't show up this week. So she checked her security camera. She never expected to find this, a woman she doesn't know, walking in, calmly reaching down for the package.
Then she took the mail, and then she went and took the lamp, and so my emotions changed. It went from shock to anger to, I was puzzled, annoyed.
She says the parcel was worth less than $100.
So I'm not too worried about the amount. It was more the idea of someone coming in to my porch and just feeling that they can take my stuff and rummage around and grab whatever they felt like.
She's still not sure what was in the mail and has called her bank, hoping she won't be a victim of identity theft.
That's why I was worried about the mail. So, package and lamp bothered me, package annoyed me, the mail concerned me.
This whole ordeal has Andrea Wilson glad that she has a security camera. She hopes it'll help police find the woman who did it to protect her and her neighbors.
It was a very bold, brazen act for this person to basically enter the home and remove the items. But it does certainly help. Security cameras are definitely something that will help in an investigation like this.
Because the porch is fully enclosed, police may investigate this as not just possible theft, but a more serious break and enter. Wilson plans to up her security.
I generally leave this front door unlocked, so I'm probably going to change the door and make sure it's locked.
She hopes her experience will also serve as a reminder to others to be extra cautious. Lorenda Redicomp, CBC News, Toronto.
Check this out.
And remember this video of a driver going down the QEW with its back doors wide open? Well, it caught the attention of one Hamilton police officer, and it turns out this car was allegedly used in 2 break-and-enters where 1,000 pounds of bulk steel was stolen. Yesterday, 2 people were arrested and charged, and this red Chevrolet Lumina seized. Spot anything wrong with this Victory in Europe video? Veterans Affairs is now apologizing for a pretty big mistake. We'll tell you what is wrong here in just a few minutes. If you were near Union Station this afternoon, you might have caught a glimpse of these beauties. They are the world-famous Budweiser Clydesdale horses in town to promote a new beer. And if you want to see them up close, the Clydesdales will be around through the weekend at the LCBO on Queens Quay and in the Distillery District. And I know the police horses don't poop and scoop, and we're hoping these ones do, Colette. Just saying.
That's where you had to go with that.
When I'm downtown, I'm walking around after the police horses. You can tell they've been there, yes.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, definitely. You don't want to be stepping in that. I know. Been there, done that. All right, let me show you, the temperatures today, so unusual. I told you this was going to happen, but we hit our high in the morning hours, 17 degrees, and yet here we are at the afternoon. The temperatures have been cooling down, that wind a little bit brisk. It's actually going to be easing here in another few hours, but we're only sitting in a single digit of 9 degrees in Toronto, Mississauga. Same thing we're getting at Pearson here. The nice thing is that the clouds have been starting to break up, so a pretty thick cloud deck earlier in the day, and then seeing more and more blue kind of peeking through. And as high pressure digs in, that's the trend. We're actually going towards mostly clear skies overnight tonight. The thing that does is it allows us to lose any of that daytime heat that we were seeing. So the temperatures tonight are actually going to fall down and be quite cool as they get closer to the freezing mark. We'll be just above. There is the potential for some frost developing, so we're seeing that. In fact, there's a special weather statement over towards Halton Peel, up towards Barrie, Midland, Orillia, through that area, Innisfil region, and then all points all the way back further towards the west, where there is a greater chance of seeing some frost development tonight. So tomorrow morning is going to be a bit of a cool start. 3 degrees, the overnight low. Those winds out of the northwest, as I said, they're going to back off a little bit. Tomorrow afternoon, clouds increase again, but at least we'll have sun to start the day. The high about 14 degrees. And Dwight, I have to tell you, the Mother's Day forecast is actually looking a little bit better than it had earlier in the week. And I will show you how it's improved a little later in the show.
You're providing me the perfect segue to our next story. We'll check back with you. Thanks, Colette.
Sounds good.
It takes a village, but certainly probably we're more involved when things don't go well.
When it comes to the difficult times, yeah, they come to Mom.
They're a pair of NHL hockey moms, Kelly McDavid and Ann Brown. Ahead of Mother's Day weekend, we sit down with them to talk about their sons, both Connors, and how they help heal their wounds on the path to success, and their advice for hockey moms whose kids have their own dreams of making it big. And the hockey world said goodbye to a legend today, Red Kelly. A number of Leafs alumni and NHL legends were on hand for the service. Kelly played 20 seasons with the Leafs and the Red Wings. He was an 8-time Stanley Cup champion and was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 1969. Red Kelly died last week at the age of 91. Veterans Affairs is apologizing for a video it posted online marking VE Day earlier this week. It was meant to salute the sacrifices of Canadian soldiers on the 74th anniversary of the victory in Europe. But some of the first shots in the video showed Nazi soldiers. After that, it shows Allied forces, as was intended, though it's not clear if any of them were actually Canadian. The video has now been pulled off social media. Veterans Affairs say it's taking steps to make sure a similar mistake doesn't happen in the future. It was an unforgettable sight. Thousands of protesters swarming the Gardiner Expressway, stopping traffic in an effort to raise awareness about the civil war in Sri Lanka. That memorable scene took place 10 years ago today. Taylor Simmons tracked down some of the people who took part to talk about the impact of that protest.
There was no real plan to take over the Gardner.
Krishna Saravanamuthu says he remembers being surrounded by a sea of people on May 10, 2009, spontaneously diverting from a march and heading up the Spadina on-ramp.
So we rushed through the police line, we took over the highway, we held the line. You know, what happened on the Gardner was very much kind of a tipping point for us. It was really a moment when we felt like we had to take some direct action and take some drastic action.
After months of demonstrations, hunger strikes, and rallies, the community had just heard about another attack back home in Sri Lanka, killing hundreds. They wanted to draw more attention to the civil war and spur government intervention.
You know, I don't think anyone particularly had an idea of what was going to happen, but there was never a question that we were going to hold that line until we received some type of word from major decision makers within this country.
As part of the months of efforts, Karothika Thushanthan took part in a human chain that ran from Bloor to Union. At 18, she also stood at the front of the line on the Gardner.
When we started running towards the Gardner, not everybody knew where we were headed. It was like that last thread, you know, like you just felt like if you don't do this now, so many people are going to die.
The group's efforts didn't end up resulting in the change they wanted. The war continued, and many in the community felt they'd failed. But according to Nithan Shan, who played a role in organizing many protests, the lack of action actually marked a turning point for Toronto's Tamil youth.
I think the biggest impact the protest has had on our community is the creation of a lot of young leaders.
That's why I decided to pursue law. I'm very much interested in human rights law. And so many of us have become motivated to pursue as our life's work the freedom of our people.
Although a controversial protest, Shan says he is seeing results from their efforts 10 years later. Earlier this week, the mayor announced May 18th, the day the Civil War ended, as Tamil Genocide Remembrance Day. Taylor Simmons, CBC News, Toronto.
I'm Farah Morali live on the red carpet at the IFSA opening gala. Coming up, we'll give you a sneak peek of the fashion and chat with the president of the festival.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Tonight is the opening gala for the International Film Festival of South Asia. It is the largest South Asian film fest in North America, and for the next 2 weeks, screenings will be happening right across the GTA. But right now, our Farah Morelli joins us live from the Mississauga Convention Center. First of all, Farah, you look amazing, and you don't usually look this red carpet ready for work.
No, I actually traded in the blazer and starched collar for something a little more sparkly. Thought I would try and fit in with all the stars. And you said it, Dwight, this is the largest South Asian film festival in all of North America. It's happening right here in the GTA. And I'm actually joined now by the president and founder of the festival, Sunny Gill. Sunny, thanks for joining us here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
It's a pretty exciting night. When some people outside of the community think about South Asian films, they think of Bollywood, but this festival is pretty diverse. Maybe tell me a little bit about what it's all about and some of the other aspects that people don't hear about.
So Farah, when we first started, we also started it that way. Actually, we designed the whole festival from audience perspective. So we used to have a lot of these, Bollywood flicks. But then over the years, we met with professionals and directors who are celebrated on international stage, like Cannes and Sundance and Berlin. So those guys then they saw our passion, they became our brand ambassadors, they became our mentors, and then they taught us how to bring the seriousness of a film festival into this thing. And with their guidance, so we are able to now bring content which is internationally acclaimed, like I said, all these big international festivals. So we are still a mix of art house and commercial cinema. So we don't want to leave that entertainment part out. But we are bringing some very serious, very thought-provoking South Asian cinema to Toronto.
And the festival also involves not just films, but it's also a chance to network. I understand there's a lot of young people who are taking part in this festival. Maybe tell us a little bit about what else is happening outside of just the films.
So yes, we are setting this up as a South Asian institution in cinematic art space. So we have all these films, but then we are also focused on education. That's why we have directors workshop, music workshop, theater workshop, producers workshop, so all these learning opportunities. And a lot of young people, and this number is going up every year, so they're taking advantage of this platform because this gives them access to a world-class, talent. Directors they might have only heard about. So this inspires them. They get to learn like one-on-one. So this year we have big participation from local young filmmakers, and we are showcasing their short films as a section called Shorts Showcase.
Sunny, thanks so much for chatting with us. You got a busy night ahead of you. Thanks for taking some time to chat with us, and good luck with the festival. The festival continues for 12 days across the GTA, Brampton, Mississauga, all over the GTA. We're going to be heading back to the red carpet for the gala and then the dinner with entertainment later tonight. Dwight.
Yeah, big night out there. Enjoy, Farah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nearly a month after fire devoured much of the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, we're getting an idea of what the restoration could look like. These are new images from a French architect who is proposing to transform the cathedral into an eco-friendly building. The plan would be to have the cathedral generate more energy than it consumes. In the meantime, there are growing health concerns about toxins from the fire. Officials report the fire left high levels of lead around the cathedral. A new session of talks aimed at reaching a truce in the trade war between the U.S. and China is over, and the U.S. president has tweeted he's in no hurry to sign a trade deal. The dispute was escalated after the U.S. imposed import duties on Chinese goods worth $200 billion. Duties the U.S. raised even higher today. Ellen Moore with more now from Washington.
The talks wrapped up here at the office of the U.S. Trade Representative late this morning. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin described them as constructive, and China's Vice Premier reportedly said they went fairly well. But they did not prevent the United States from going forward with tariff hikes on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods, raising those tariffs to 25%, reportedly in response to Chinese desires to change parts of the draft agreement. China vowed to retaliate, so a messy backdrop for the talks today. President Trump defended the tariff hikes on Twitter this morning in a series of tweets, in one of them writing, "Talks with China continue in a very congenial manner. There is absolutely no need to rush, as tariffs are now being paid to the United States by China. These massive payments go directly to the Treasury of the United States." But China isn't actually paying anything to the United States. These tariffs will be on Chinese goods coming into the U.S., making those goods more expensive, a cost set to be borne by American consumers. But there is an important caveat. The tariffs only apply to goods shipped from China after the midnight deadline last night, and they only take effect once those goods reach the United States. That leaves a small but an important window of time for negotiators to come to some kind of resolution before the tariffs have a tangible impact on American consumers. Ellen Morrow, CBC News, Washington.
I was what's going on put out to the world, and you're the man held back until now.
I can't personally say why it was like that. I can think why it was like that. I can think that Marvin Gaye was right.
He played guitar for Marvin Gaye, but the album he was featured on was shelved for decades until now. We speak with Leroy Emmanuel about what it's like to finally see his name in the liner notes, and you can catch him live nearly every week here in Toronto. We'll tell you where. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
CBC Toronto is a proud sponsor of the 2019 International Film Festival of South Asia. With over 150 films in 16 languages, it's the largest South Asian film festival in North America. Join us May 9th through 20th for this 12-day spectacle, showcasing galas, stars, parties, concerts, and much more. Check out cbc.ca/Toronto for more information and click on our community page.
A Marvin Gaye album shelved for nearly 50 years for being too political was released last month. One of the musicians featured on it can be found on a Toronto stage nearly every week. Leroy Emmanuel played guitar on the album's title track, You're the Man. Talia Ritchie spoke with him at the Orbit Room.
I hear myself playing on a record, of course. You know, I'm on 1,000 records, but I hear that, and all I can remember is Marvin telling me, do that thing you do, man, you know?
And you say that You're the Man was quite political. What does that song and that album mean to you, and what were some of the conversations that were had?
All the session meant to me was a paycheck, to be honest with you, at the time. But it meant more because Marvin was a friend, and I already know he's a deep thinker. And I know he's the type of guy, when he thinks something out, when he writes something, it's on. He's not a guy that would write a flop. As far as I know, he never wrote a flop in his life. Because he's real from moment to moment. Now, what it means right now to me, it don't mean me personally. I look at it like, you know, this is something that needs to be said, you know, politically.
So despite rubbing shoulders with, you know, all of these famous people and traveling, you're still at the Orbit Room on Wednesdays in Toronto. Why do you come back here?
It's a place where people who really, really want to have a good time, fun. You said fun. They said, what night is it? This is Wednesday. Let's go to the Orbit Room. Why? Fun. We're going to have some fun there. One of the main reasons why we always keep coming back here, because we come here and we do whatever we want. We come here, we know a lot of people that come through here for the last 21 years. And this is not the only job we have. We have jobs around the world. At the age that I am, at this particular time, my birthday just passed by, I'm really happy, number one, to be alive, you know, because most of the Motown people are gone, the original Motown people, I was 75% of them gone, you know, and they made history. And me and my little guitar had the honor and the pleasure and the opportunity to weave through all of that history. Now I'm just happy to just be able to do it. I'm happy for this moment.
Thank you. You can see Mr. Emmanuel and his little guitar every Wednesday at the Orbit Room in Little Italy, and you can hear more of his story this weekend on our Toronto Saturday and Sunday at noon, right here on CBC Television. Some surprising and positive economic news today about Canada's labour market. More than 106,000 new jobs were created last month across the country. It is the largest one-month employment gain on record, going back more than 40 years, and is 5 to 6 times more than expected. Now, the gains were spread over many industries, including 32,000 in the retail industry as it gears up for the spring and summer season, 26,000 in construction as housing continues to be developed, and 14,000 in the recreation and culture industries. Now, the job increases have also helped lower the unemployment rate from 5.8% to 5.7%. Some entrepreneurs are worried about a plan to reduce provincial funding for startup companies. Several groups are speaking out, saying the cuts will take away support from innovation in our province. Lisa Shing explains.
This co-working space in downtown Toronto is home to many startups, including Venture Kids Canada, a not-for-profit teaching kids to code. And its founder says she was shocked to hear the province is reducing funding to some of the country's institutions that support small businesses.
Those cuts will definitely have a trickle-down effect to other startups who rely on that funding.
The funding changes affect the Ontario Centres of Excellence, which helps companies get funding. Kitchener-Waterloo's Communitech saw a 30% reduction, and Toronto's Mars Discovery District confirms its core funding is cut by less than 10%, deeper than expected. That could mean job losses.
I think it'll just mean there'll be a harder time for them to grow and expand.
The government says it has a budget to balance.
We're continuing to reduce funding in certain areas so that we can protect what matters most.
To the NDP, that means a hit to the economy.
The supports available to early stage firms are what keeps these companies here in Ontario. Without these supports, they can and will go elsewhere.
Does there need to be government involvement in this?
I think that helps assist startups, especially women, who we've seen participate in the tech economy at lower rates and have harder time raising funds.
Small says she's hoping the private sector will step in, but says government money helps level the playing field. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Shares in Uber are now on sale on the New York Stock Exchange, but the initial public offering has not been a great success. Shares were offered at a price of $45 US. That valued the whole company at around $82 billion. As Jacqueline Hansen tells us, investors who buy in may be embarking on a bumpy journey.
It could be the ride of a lifetime for investors. Uber has called itself the Amazon of transportation, disruptive and eventually, hopefully, worthwhile for investors.
Amazon is trying to be everything to you for your retail needs, and they want to be everything for your transportation and other things down the road that they haven't even thought of.
Uber is losing piles of money. Sure, it completed 5 billion rides last year, but it lost $2.4 billion. Its biggest cost? Drivers. But many drivers say they're not being paid enough.
You're paying your executives millions of dollars and you're taking away everything from your drivers.
Plus, it has serious competition in everything it does, and legal and regulatory issues, along with investing in ambitious projects, all add up. Uber isn't even sure it's possible to get from point A, losing money, to point B, profit. One route could be driverless cars.
If you take a $10 ride, the driver is getting $8 of that. So if Uber can take the driver out of the equation, that basically all falls to the bottom line. They have to pay a little bit more for the self-driving cars, but it's nothing compared to how much more money they would make.
That could be a decade or more away, though. And analysts say if Uber keeps burning through cash, the new money it raises won't last that long.
It's not unusual for tech companies to go public without making a profit first, but it will be a long road ahead before investors will know if Uber will pay off. Jacqueline Hansen, CBC News, Toronto.
Uber closed their first day on the stock exchange down more than 7% at $41.50 a share. And as we head to break, now here's a look at where the rest of the markets closed today. Stay with us. We will be right back.
This market update is brought to you by SSQ Insurance, reminding you that stronger communities make every person stronger.
In case you forgot, this is your reminder. It is Mother's Day on Sunday, and it will be a special one for a couple of hockey moms. After a busy NHL season, Kelly McDavid and Ann Brown will get to spend the day with their boys, Oilers captain Connor McDavid and Leafs forward Connor Brown. I spoke with the pair about helping their sons achieve their dreams and what advice they have for new hockey moms.
Well, I think, Kelly, you have the same experience that I have, that it takes a village. Although we were really involved, and certainly, you know, I always worked full time, but trying to fit it in and even like whip out during the day to watch a tournament game and go back to work and all that. But I'm lucky enough that, you know, my parents were alive and around at that time. They helped. My husband's parents, aunts, nieces, everybody jumps in. It takes a village. But certainly, probably we're more involved when things don't go well. I think that's kind of more our role.
When it comes to the difficult times, yeah, they come to Mom. And, you know, it was kind of nice back then because, you know, you'd be in the car with them and there was no cell phones and, you know, they weren't quickly on the phone and texting and looking down. So you actually had conversations. And I have to say, you know, we had some of the best conversations in the car with both my boys.
What were some of the sacrifices that you had to make as moms to help them?
It's going to sound corny, and I think you're like me. I don't feel I made any.
No, really?
No, if it was 6 o'clock and they had a house league game, I wanted to go watch it. I loved it. I loved every second of it. I loved when they were 3 years, 4 years old playing. Probably that was the most fun.
So cute.
It's so cute, and they're so happy, and they just love the game. And so I never felt like that. I never felt sorry for myself on a Friday night being at Topico Ice Porch watching a game. I'd have a glass of wine.
Yeah, me too.
But I never felt like that, truly.
You know, you miss certain family times, you know, certainly Thanksgiving, you know, because we had two boys, we were always in different directions.
Yep.
Easter, there was always a tournament, we were in different directions. After Christmas, Boxing Day, you know,
right away.
We were always running off too. But again, you just see how happy they are, and, you know, I think you do anything for your kids.
Yeah.
You talked about a village helping. How was it with the other hockey moms?
You know, you're in the rink
a lot,
all the time.
Yeah.
So if you're not, you know, if you're not forming bonds with these ladies and families, then it's pretty lonely, I would think.
Yeah.
But I couldn't imagine. But
for sure. Yeah, and Erie was really special because we'd go down Friday night and come back Sunday. So we'd have wine and cheese parties.
You guys are smiling. So you must have had a good time.
It was a
support group there.
Yeah, and you're away from everybody for the weekend, so you better, you know, as you say, socialize and. But we all were just cheering for each other, for sure.
What advice would you have for some hockey mom who's just taking her little one to Pee Wee and starting out?
I mean, the first thing would be, obviously, don't think of the end goal. Don't lose the moment you're in. Enjoy it, because it goes fast if you look back. I do see this generation, I don't know if you see it, Kelly, they almost seem so caught up in that end goal. They're doing, you know, off ice, all these things, where our guys just played other sports in the summer. So make it fun. Keep it fun.
That's good advice.
I would absolutely say the same thing. You know, enjoy every minute of it because it just goes so fast. You know, and people told me that, you know, when my kids were little, and you think, oh, sure, you know, but it's a blink of an eye, and you want to enjoy every minute of it.
And be a mom, not a coach. You know, like they need you. These guys are so competitive that. You still have that, oh my God, I know he's going to be so upset tonight. It's still. I mean, so that's still our role.
You know, Connor hurt himself in the last game of the year. He was obviously beside himself. So, you know, we jumped on a plane and we were in Erie we were in Edmonton in 4 hours, so, or 5 hours. So, you know, you just want to be there for them and support them, but definitely an overwhelming sense of pride for both of my boys. Nothing makes me happier than being with the boys.
Yeah, we have that in common, that's for sure.
Happy Mother's Day to both of you.
Thanks so much.
You know, I feel like I'm talking to a couple of Canada's moms here with your sons and what they've done. It's really exciting. Yeah, two wonderful moms there with two great kids. I'm hoping that Mr. Brown maybe gets a cup before Mr. McDavid, just because he plays on our hometown Toronto team. But
I'm with you.
A real treat, and I love the advice that they were giving. You know what? Be a mom, not a coach. Love it.
I agree with you. I thought there were some gems in there, and that was absolutely one of them for sure. And the other thing was interesting is that they wanted to go. You know, I think it's a whole different ballgame taking your kids to the rink if you don't want to be there, but if you want to be there and watching too, then it's enjoyable for the whole family. So yeah, really great advice there. It was a nice piece, Dwight. Okay, let's show you the headlines in terms of what we can expect. We're headed into a weekend, so this is an important one. And tonight, that risk of frost I was talking about earlier in the show, even a special weather statement in place for areas just to the west of us, to the north of the city as well. So cool night tonight all around. Increasing cloud on Saturday, but hey, if it's increasing, it means we're starting off with a good deal of sunshine. And then I still have a risk of showers in my forecast for Sunday, for Mother's Day, but it looks like maybe that's going to hold off till later in the day, and the beginning of the day could be quite decent. Temperatures right now, much cooler than they were this morning. Single digit there, Toronto at 9 degrees. Oshawa, you guys hanging on though at 11. All that rain from earlier, well off to the east. And the clouds, which were quite thick even in the early part of the afternoon, have been really breaking up nicely. But that's because high pressure is digging in. We're going to find the winds start to ease a little bit. That's another reason you can get into some frost development if the winds aren't very strong, mixing the atmosphere. And so we'll have lighter winds as we go into the overnight, clearer skies. That's why that frost risk there. But as we head through the day, Saturday, sun to start, more clouds later in the day, and then see how this X system is kind of staying to the south. That's on Sunday morning. Into Sunday afternoon, it's like another system actually moves through. And so that's when the timing of this and the shift of it, if it comes a little further north, that is going to wreck some plans. But right now, it looks like it stays south, and then it's Sunday night into Monday that we get into more of that rain shower activity. These are the cool readings overnight tonight, so keep that in mind tomorrow morning if you're going to be out the door early. Tomorrow afternoon with clouds increasing, highs 13 to 15 degrees. Sunday, again, the beginning of the day could be pretty good. And then the rain into Monday, 9 degrees. That's going to be cool. That's going to be a hard one to go back to school, back to work on Monday. But after that, take heart. It does improve midweek. It looks like temperatures finally back to seasonal there, Dwight.
And we can't trade Wednesday for Sunday. There's no tradesies here, no?
If we could do trade, you've just blown my mind. I wish we could do that with weather.
Thank you.
Someone there? Whoever you are, you know how to use this.
Oh, jeez. Here we go.
I know, you can't understand me, but put down the stapler or I will electrocute you.
Did you just talk?
Whoa. Did you just understand
Pokemon has hit the big screen for real this time, from a trading card game, animated TV show, to the hugely popular Pokemon smartphone game. Eli will tell us how the world of Pokemon looks on the big screen. That's next.
No one else hear him? I don't need a Pokemon.
woke up with a heavy case of amnesia in the middle of nowhere. The only clue to my past is Harry's name and address inside this hat. So I made my way to the apartment, and that's when I found you and your stapler gun.
Stop talking! You're a hallucination!
You're a hallucination.
Pikachu with no memories.
The Avengers may still be dominating the box office 3 weeks on, but there's one character hoping to take on Marvel's might this weekend. He's small, furry, and yellow, and goes by the name Pikachu. And the sparky little guy has got a little extra star power from Canada's Ryan Reynolds. Pokemon Detective Pikachu is in theaters today. And Eli is here to tell us all about it. We've seen Pokemon in cartoons, video games. I was running around with my kids with that game. Now we've got the first live-action Pokemon
There's more.
film.
Aren't you excited?
Yes, I am. Where does it start, Eli?
So, for those who haven't had the pleasure, let me explain. So, what are Pokemon? Pokemon are these critters, creatures, something. These amazing animals with amazing abilities. They've been with us since the beginning of time, and I guess we capture them in balls and they do our bidding, but that sounds kind of cruel. But in this movie, there's a special place called Rhyme City. Rhyme City is a place where Pokemon and people, they live together in harmony. They're equals, and that's where we find Tim. So Tim is a young man. He just learned that his father, who was a police detective in Rhyme City, has gone missing, maybe even murdered. So he gets called back to this Poke City to find out what happened. Let's take a look.
Tim, your dad was a legend in this precinct. If you were anything like your dad...
I'm not.
I remember. You wanted to be a Pokemon trainer when you were young.
Yeah, that didn't really work out.
All right, so you see there, he goes back to his father's apartment, processing a lot of emotions. He thought he'd left Pokemon behind. They pull him back in, and yes, that's where he sees Pikachu himself. Now, here's the thing. In the world of Pokemon, Pokemon can only say their name to communicate. They're kind of like Groot. So if you're Pikachu, you can only go, Pika, Pika, Pikachu, you, like that.
You do that far too well.
I took a special course. It was worth every penny. But, of course, he doesn't sound like that at all. He sounds like a very funny Canadian, but Tim understands. Take a look.
You can hear him, right?
Pika Pika! Yeah, Pika Pika Pika, he's adorable.
You're adorable. They can't understand me, kid.
Can no one else hear him?
Come on. And what about a world-class detective?
So there you go. So now he's got this new buddy, Detective Pikachu. He's a detective because he was actually Tim's father's partner, except Pikachu has Pika amnesia. He doesn't remember what happened. So together, they need to join force. I know, it's this week's movie. They need to figure out the case. Off we go.
All right. Pokemon is all about these creatures with their different abilities, right?
Yes.
So what do you make of the actors' abilities in this film then, Eli?
So let's start with Tim. I like Tim. I like the actor playing Tim. It's Justice Smith. I would say he's a good, kind of somewhat nervous everyman. So this is a big, ridiculous, silly movie. I like that he's somewhat grounded, doesn't overdo it. Now, let's move on to the main attraction, Ryan Reynolds as Pikachu. What you've got, I mean, you've got the cuddly, cute face of Pikachu, and then you've got basically the voice of Deadpool before he learned to swear, right?
Yes.
It's like little baby Deadpool. And I'm actually surprised how far Reynolds is willing to push it. Look at what happens when they go to confront a Pokemon trainer.
Those are nice. Wow. I'd like to see this guy's internet search history. Who are you? Let's see where this goes. Tell him you're my new partner.
I'm his new partner.
Well, that Pikachu Thunderbolt almost wrecked my prized Charizard.
Last time he was here.
Oh, scar's still fresh.
All I hear are consonants, and all I see are nipples.
And you know what?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure in the history of Pokemon, they never said the word nipples. But here we are. Thank you, Vancouver's own Ryan Reynolds. That's what he's given us.
I'm afraid to ask about the movie overall. Is Detective Pikachu the film fans want?
I think it depends what kind of Pokemon fan you are. I like the Pokemon battles. I mean, I like the idea of the strategy, and you play this card and I play that card. We don't get that here. We get this kind of pseudo-mystery with sad, fatherless boy on this adventure, and then Pikachu, who's having performance issues, so he's not zapping anyone, and instead of saying Pika Pika, he makes jokes about his caffeine consumption. So it's a very different film.
Weird.
It is a little weird. I mean, this is like the Dark Knight of Pokemon films, and like surprisingly realistic look at this very strange world. So for me, I give it 3 stars out of 5, but if that doesn't work for you, yes, let's bring back the dancing Pikachu, because Ryan Reynolds trolled the internet with what we thought was a leak of the film. It's really an hour and a half
I'm just a dancer.
Pikachu doing jazzercise. So if you don't like the film, this is trending on YouTube, and it's kind of hypnotic. Enjoy.
That's my workout for tomorrow. Thanks, Eli.
You're welcome.
I can feel it now dancing. I was hoping they wouldn't come back to me. But they came back
They
to me.
did.
Thanks, buddy.
You're welcome.
Here's Simmons, and lays it up and through. 81-63 here in Game 6.
Not sure why my producer's making me watch this again. Tough loss for the Raps. They were dominated by the Sixers. Throughout most of the game last night, the series now tied at 3 wins apiece, and Raptors coach Nick Nurse says they just have to do better.
We've got to play with great physicality, great speed, connected on the defensive end. I think we gotta play our one of our best defensive games of the year. Make sure, and play with some gusto on offense.
More than gusto, I think. Game 7 tips off at home Sunday at 7. And yes, I'm still hopeful, and so is Colin.
I am, and I'm with you. I was thinking the same thing. I do not want to see these highlights anymore.
I do not want to see it anymore.
No.
Sunday, if you're doing something with Mom outdoors, like maybe going to Hyde Park to look at the festival, do it early, right?
Yeah, things are looking like maybe the forecast isn't going to be as bad as we thought, and it'll be later in the day, clouds coming in and the showers then into Sunday night. But overnight tonight, cool one, down to 3 degrees and some patchy frost possible.
That's our show for tonight. Likewise, as you covered at 11, we will see you back here on Monday.